Okay, welcome back. I'm just going to jump in now and show you where we're at. So we had a couple of problems yesterday with the arrows and with the blocking and with using the weapons. So very quickly I'll show you. We'll just pick them all up and go outside. So with the weapon, the problem we had yesterday was that we could block and we could attack. And I am clicking now, but I cannot attack. I can attack, but the moment I decide to block, I'm no longer attacking. And I actually discovered another problem, which was while blocking, I could switch to the mace and I would continue blocking. But then if I was blocking with the mace and switching to the sword, I would not continue blocking. So I had to make sure that those two were behaving the same. And now whenever we switch weapons, we stop blocking. We have to do the block again, which I think is nice. That's looking good. And yeah, so the other problem was with the arrows, and that was the inventory basically not working. And that's fixed, and I'm going to show you that now, but that involves me opening the inventory, so I'm going to move on and talk about all the stuff that's in the inventory system now. And it doesn't look pretty. None of this stuff does, because it's all placeholder stuff. But we have all of these different stats, separated into 3 sections. So we have the combat, vitality, and resilience. You can think of these two. This is how much health we have, and this is how quickly the health is going to fill up. And fortitude is our resistance to physical attacks, like getting hit by arrows, getting hit by swords, how much of our health. If we're not wearing any armor, ignoring the effect that armor has, just purely our basis of resisting physical attacks. That's what this is. And power is basically there to control how much damage are we doing with the sword and with the mace. So they're going to have a fixed amount, but then that amount will be modified by however much power we have. And then with magic, it's kind of the same thing. So essence and focus, this is how much magic points you have to spend. And focus is how quickly those points are regenerating over time. And with resolve, it's kind of the same in the sense that it is when we get hit by spells, how much damage do the spells do? How long do the spells last? Like how badly affected do we get by enemy spells? Because a higher resolve will mean that the damage will be less. And wisdom is, I forget sometimes, that's right, it's the same as power, but because spells could be used to heal you as well as to attack enemies, as well as, I don't really know, but basically how effective is the spell that we're casting. So how good are we at resisting other people's spells? How good are the spells that we're firing? That's what these two are. And then we have the other stats. So we have agility, which is how quickly we move and how high we jump. Of course, we can't jump yet, but we're going to add jumping. Finesse, which allows us to basically speed this animation up so that the attacks are, the gap between each attack is going to get a little bit slower, faster rather. So there's always a little wait before we can attack again, and a higher finesse will reduce the wait time for that. Precision allows a chance to, so this is actually going to increase the damage that the bow does directly, but it's also going to increase the chance that we have of doing a critical hit. And we don't have any enemies yet. We don't have anything to do damage to. We're not doing damage to anything yet, because obviously none of these things have health. So once we start adding enemies that have health and we're consistently applying a fixed amount of damage to them, and we can modify that with the power, we want to have a random chance of having a 2 times critical or something like that. And that's what this will be. Will increase the likelihood of one of those critical strikes. And then guard, which increases how effective the armor that we're wearing is, and how effective is our ability to block. So blocking will, prevent physical damage and possibly spell damage, I'm not sure, maybe not. Maybe we'll find a magical upgrade for the shield to make it a magical shield, and then it'll also reflect spells or block spells as well as physical attacks. Because I am thinking the mace, the sword, the bow, they're all going to have enchantments on them at some point later in the game. So we'll first of all pick up the weapons, and then later on we'll pick up magical enhancements for those weapons, I imagine. So that's pretty much it for our stats, I think. And I want to tidy it up a little bit, make it look a little bit nicer, because we've only got 12 of them. And so it looks a little bit weird to just have it covering half the screen there, but I don't want to make them too big either, so not really sure what I'll do with this, but I'm sure we'll figure something out. And obviously every time we click on them, we're updating here to get info about it, because when people play the game, they might not know what it all means. What does this thing actually do? And so we have a little explanation about that. And we can go here, and yes, our inventory is all working, even though we picked up those arrows. So the 3 bugs that we had relating to the weapon system are all happy now, they're all sorted. But I think, you know, I might have to reconsider this idea of just having 3 weapons, because I want the inventory to kind of look full, and there's only 2 things I can do. I can either add more items, or I can make the items bigger. So I might make them a little bit bigger, but then I might add more weapons. But, you know, that's tricky because I already am very happy with this switching between 1, 2, and 3. But I suppose I could keep that for all of them. They could all switch between different numbers. I mean, Don't Nukem had like 10 weapons, you know, it was 1 all the way to 0, I think. And these are just for the weapons, these numbers. We're not actually ever having to equip armor, so that'll all just get added to the player. So, yeah, most of the stuff's going to be in other items, and so we can view all the other items here. And over here is where we're going to be able to see all of our spells. So all of our spells we use for attacking enemies, all our ones we use for protecting ourselves. And when enemies attack us, they're going to apply an effect to us, depending what kind of spell it is. And also, like if we're in a dungeon and we walk through an area that's got like a poison gas, that might apply an effect to us as well. And I wanted to test this because I thought, if we're adding that effect to the player, is it going to have the same thing as when we add an item to the player? Because whenever we add the item, the screen flashes green. And so I've just made a temporary debug where I can press V, and V adds an effect to the player, the bad effect. And ideally, I'll be able to set a timer on these so that they actually get removed after a certain amount of time. Because, yeah, obviously when we're walking in the gas, the screen should flash red whenever we take damage. But we don't want to have it flashing green once whenever that effect gets added. So that's why I added that. But for these two, I haven't added any items into the world to actually add them to the inventory. But I need to, and I need to add the functionality so that when we click on them, even though it won't work with active effects, but with these two, we should be able to click on it, and it should update the image down there. And it should update some logic inside the player so we know the currently selected spell is that spell. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. We're going to have the player here, and we're going to have a nice description here for all of our spells, our weapons, and our statistics. And the other thing I need to work on tomorrow, oh, finally, I was wondering, am I going to run into any issues? So if we go here, and then here, it's all good. But if we go from here to here, that's a little oversight of mine. I need to make sure that clicking on here hides the stats page. So, a little bit more work to do with this one. But anyway, over here we're going to have some buttons to go between our different quests that we have, and we'll have a button to view the world map as well, so we can see that. Basically, we'll be able to see that on here, but it's going to not look like that. It's going to have different colors so that it looks a little bit more natural, like it belongs. And I think that'll be nice, because right now, every time I press M, I have to start a new game to close it out. But it'll be nice that I can just go here, and then go here to view the map. That'll be pretty cool. And yeah, there's quite a lot of functionality with that map because we want to have a flashing dot for what tile we're currently standing on, things like that. There's quite a few things that need to go in with the map to get it fully working. But I think that can come later. I have a feeling I may just make an early attempt to get the underlying functionality of the journal to work. So obviously fix this bug and then set these up so that they're updating their images properly whenever I click on them, but not on the active effects. And have it so that I can jump between different pages here and have the map on one of those pages and have a nice proper image in the background, you know, get it all looking a bit better. Just think about, because this is something I could get stuck on for ages because it's just design. It's, you know, how large do we want everything to be, how visible. But I like the idea of having these three be consistent with seeing the player and have just this one be like a book that we've opened and we can view things. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure. But we're going to just get the basics of this one working tomorrow. And once the basics of that are working and all of these little bugs are tidied up and we can update the image for our selected spell over there, then I think we'll be ready, possibly, to add an enemy. Because, as I was saying, these don't mean anything right now. They're not connected to anything. And we can't do damage yet, so how much power we have doesn't... Even if it did mean something inside the player, it doesn't really mean anything. Like, I have a health inside the player, as I demonstrated yesterday. So, we're at 50% health now. And so what this will be a certain level, and as this gets upgraded, the max health will increase, and the current health will always slowly climb up towards the max health, and the rate at which it climbs up to the max health will be based on whatever this is. So quite a few things to add still, but once all those things are in there, yeah, as I was saying, I think we'll be ready very soon, possibly tomorrow, to add the enemies, because adding the enemies does add quite a lot of other stuff to the game, like getting all those stats to actually translate into gameplay, because they're all kind of there to optimize our performance in combat, and there is no combat right now because there is no enemies to fight. So we're going to add that tomorrow. And yeah, we'll add an enemy tomorrow. Maybe get the magic casting enemy added tomorrow as well. That would be wonderful. Because then we can start playing around with getting those active effects working, and we can get the player casting spells working. So I think it's all going to take a couple days, really. But I'm not entirely sure what I'll get done tomorrow. I'm just kind of discussing the plans with you. Is there anything else I wanted to mention? Yes, going to add jumping, possibly add swimming as well. So agility would also increase the speed at which we swim. It kind of increases speed overall. But we're getting there. You know, this is stable now. This isn't breaking. And the compass looks great. That's not breaking at all, which is lovely. The only bug really that we have is that one, and the fact that we don't have any spells and we can't like update the image over here. I think that's where it's going to start being really exciting. When I can see all the images down there, it's all going to start coming together. You know, it's going to start looking like what I imagine it to look like. And once we get some enemies in and we can fight those enemies, that'll be great. Because then we need to add the human beings that we can talk to. And when we can talk to people, they'll be able to tell us to go to places. And when they tell us that we can go to places, that's when this page needs to be fully functional, because that map will need to be updating based on what people have told us, and we'll be able to go over different spots and view the tooltip next to the cursor. And also getting a customized cursor would be great. And I should really update that compass of the cursor. The crosshair, I should say. The crosshair needs to be updated because it is just a white square. I could make that look a little bit prettier. But I must hold off on making things look pretty because we're nearly there now. I think a couple more days, couple more weeks, and we might have the game pretty much fully functional. And when it is pretty much fully functional, I'm just gonna dust my hand, say good enough, and we'll just concentrate on making everything look really, really great. Once everything looks really, really great, then we have to go ahead and actually design all of those different dungeons and kind of iterate over and make sure everything is working. But something else I'll need to add, once I have enemies, I'll need to add the ability for the player to die, and of course we have saving and loading as well. You know, all of these, they'll all need to be saved and loaded. These I'm not so worried about because they work exactly the same as this. It's just an extension of the inventory, so I know that they're already going to save, and as long as them clicking on them and updating this image works the same as how it does here, then you know all that stuff should save. I guess the thing I'm really worried about is more dynamic things like enemies moving around, living and dying and attacking, being in different states and having the game save and then get loaded. What state are they going to load back to? Things like that. So quite a lot of work still, but I think we're cracking on, we're making good progress. So yeah, thanks everybody. See ya.